Okay. Trust can crumble. It can be broken, seemingly in a flash, but it can be rebuilt. All the way from Australia, it is my sincere privilege to welcome Patrizia Cassaniti and her story, Touched by Christopher. Patrizia is an acclaimed workplace safety advocate and has been named among the top 100 women in construction. With appearances on 60 Minutes, multiple news magazine programs, the morning shows, Patrizia has reached a global audience in her efforts to spread the amazing work of her foundation, Touched by Christopher, in the tireless pursuit of workplace safety. We are honored to present Patrizia Cassaniti.
You want me to take your badge? Oh, yeah. Thank you. Thanks. I worked as a coffee barista with my coffee van on a job site on Macquarie Park in Sydney. And that's where my son Christopher worked. And on Wednesday, 27th of March 2019, it was Christopher's 18th birthday. So as per normal, we went to his work. He used to jump into the van with me and we get to work. But that morning, I actually put a cake inside the van and I hid it from him. I finished everybody's coffee at the job site, and as everyone went off, I grabbed the cake and I took it to his lunchroom, called his workmates, and I said, come in, it's his 18th birthday, let's celebrate. I said, go get Christopher. They did, and as Christopher walked through the lunchroom, he put his eyes on me and was absolutely mortified. He said, Mum, he goes, what are you doing? He goes, you do not bring cake to my work. And I said, I'm not in kindergarten. And I said, but it's your birthday. I said, you have to celebrate. And as mortified as he was, I'm so glad that I managed to capture that moment of him celebrating his birthday with his workmates. That very same day, he took out a loan to buy the car that you see pictured behind me. You know, you had to wait until you're 18 to actually take out a loan. And he was so proud of himself because it was approved pretty much immediately. He got to pick up his car on Friday and was happy as Larry. He's driving along, and Saturday he takes himself to work, and that afternoon when he came home, we celebrated his 18th birthday with family and friends. But it wasn't a normal 18th birthday party where everyone just gets drunk and, you know, celebrates. He spent the whole night outside with his car going up and down the street with his mates, planning how he was going to do the things he wanted to do to this car and all the things, you know, all the trips he wanted to do. Sunday morning, he wakes up, he grabs me, gives me the biggest hug, and he goes, Mum, I'm so happy. He goes, now I've got a car to tow my boat. And he goes, but it's one more thing I'd like to do. I said, what's that? He goes, Mum, I want my car to be fully sick. And I went, oh. I said, but fully sick is expensive, you know. I said, you got all these things to do. You got to save your money. And I said, no, Mum, sit down. So he sat me down on the lounge, and he's Googling all the things he wanted to do to the car. He wanted to do all the, you know, 3-inch lift kits and all the kind of stuff that he wanted to do to this to make his car personalised. Monday morning, I took the day off because I had to clean up after the birthday party. And I said to Christopher, you've got a car now, you don't need me, you can go by yourself. So he did. He drove himself to work and never came home. And that was 4 days after his 18th birthday. Unfortunately, on that day, a scaffold collapsed on him, and it was because of a 5-minute complacent decision that was made on site that took my son for life. And I'll say that again. It was a 5-minute complacent decision that was made on site that took my son for life. Every single tie off the scaffold was removed. Not only that, they decided to overload the scaffold by 19.5 tonnes. There was no way that this scaffold was going to stay up. And it collapsed, and he copped the full brunt of it. Not only did he get caught underneath a scaffold. It was his supervisor as well. He survived his injuries. Unfortunately, his injuries are so bad, he'll never be able to go back to work. His trauma is beyond repair. Unfortunately, my son lived for 20 minutes and couldn't cope anymore and suffocated under the pressure of the scaffold that was on top of him. And for me, it's my nightmare. It's my every single nightmare that I go to bed every single night to put my head down on the pillow. And all I envisage is my son face down with a whole heap of scaffold on top of him, screaming out my name. And this is what Carla, his supervisor, says. All I hear, Trish, is your son screaming out for you. I held his hand for 20 minutes and there's nothing I could do. Trauma does not stop at me, my husband and my children. 250 workers were on that site and witnessed this trauma. They are all affected. And it has affected them in such a way that a lot of people, when they got back, half the crew never returned. And, you know, I hear these things. Can I have the next slide? It was 1:15 p.m, April 1st, 2019, when I received that phone call that no mother should ever receive, nor any other any other family for that matter. And that phone call came from a very good friend of ours who also worked on that site. He was a truck driver. He had just picked up his load and was about to dump it when he received the phone call to say, don't come back because we've had an incident. The first thing he did, knowing that me and Christopher were on that site, he rang me and he goes, oh, is Christopher okay? I'm like, why? And I said, I'm at home, what's wrong? And he goes, Trish, you better go. I said, there's been an incident. So put the phone down, grab my keys, get into my car and I start driving. I'm driving along, I get onto our freeway and I hit speeds that I'd never seen before. Now, my anxiety levels are starting to rise, but I'm trying to convince myself that everything is okay. Because if it wasn't okay, his bosses would have called me by now. And I never received that phone call, so I decided to ring Christopher. But there was no answer. It kept ringing out. So I ring up his supervisor and, you know, Adam picks up the phone. I said, Adam, what's going on? He goes, oh, Trish. He goes, I'm on my way to the site. Apparently there's been a collapse. I said to him, but what's going on? He goes, Trish, I don't have any details. I'm not there. I have to let you know when I get there. Unfortunately, I do know that Christopher is in the rubble. Probably the worst thing he could have told me by now, because I'm still sitting in my car. And I'm driving at speeds that, like, trying to dodge everybody to try and get there. And my whole body just goes cold. So I'll ring up his other supervisor. He picks up the phone and he's huffing and puffing. I said, Jim, what's going on? I said, is Christopher with you? Is he okay? Oh, Trish, I can't speak to you right now. I have to call you back later. I said, no, Jim, where's Christopher? Is Christopher with you? Is he okay? Trish, please, I can't speak to you right now. I have to call you back later, and hung up. I can't see now because my anxiety has reached top. I don't even know how I got myself to that site. I still didn't know what was happening, where Christopher is, if he was okay or not. I finally get to the site. I open the door to get out, park the car, and it was all blocked off with security, police, rescue teams, helicopters. Everything was on that site. I get out and nearly collapse to the ground because I can't feel my legs. And I'm thinking, Trish, get it together. I said, you have to get to this site. This site was furthest away and I couldn't even think of how I'm going to walk there. I hear a car come up beside me. I stopped it and I said, please take me up there. I jump into the car, he drives me up and we stop where those 250 workers are now standing there, all in silence. And they're all shaking their heads because I get out of the car, slam the door. Some see me. And the whole situation has now become personal because I'm mum on that site. Not only am I Christopher's mum, I'm mum to every single person there because I make them coffee every single morning. I know these people personally. And no one could actually look at me and tell me that my son had died. So I walk through the crowd. I'm pacing up and down. I still don't know where Christopher is or if he'd been picked up, if he'd been taken to the hospital. I'm pacing up and down and I get a tap on the shoulders. Mrs. Cassaniti, can you please follow us? They take me to the first aid room. I go to sit down. Just as I sit down, the police officer walks in. He kneels in front of me, puts his hand on my knee, looks up and he said, I'm sorry to inform you, Mrs. Cassaniti, but there's been a scaffold collapse. Unfortunately, your son got caught underneath and there was nothing we could do. He's passed away at the site. I stood up. I said, I beg your pardon. I said, what do you mean my son has passed away? I said, there is no way he has passed away. He just turned 18. And he looked at me and goes, I'm really sorry, Mrs. Cassaniti. There is nothing we can do. That day was the day that my whole life changed. And it changed to unbelievable realms to try and come to terms with the fact that my son will never come through the front door, all because of a 5-minute complacent decision that was made on site that took him for life. Can I have the next slide, please? Since his death, I have been on a mission. My anger drives what I do. And I've been on a mission to make change. I educated myself and I did a certificate 4 in WHS law to try and figure out what our laws are about. I have changed a few laws within our government and changed categories so that any future incidents, protection is for every single worker. I implemented a safety app with our regulators so that if workers do see any unsafe work practices, they're able to speak up anonymously through this app. Because unfortunately, speaking up is a taboo. Everybody thinks if they speak up, they get victimised. And I don't want that. I want to change that culture. And if you can't speak up, do it anonymously. And I've been able to give them that app to be able to do this totally anonymously. It's only within our state, and I'm hoping to get it out there. We were also very overwhelmed by the amount of people that came through my house. I estimate about 600 people came to visit me after Christopher's death, bringing us food, groceries, and just a shoulder. And I said to my husband, we have to give back. And I started the Touch by Christopher Foundation. I raise money to help families who've lost a loved one in the workplace by providing them with 3 months' worth of groceries and pay off any bills that they may have outstanding so that they can grieve without the everyday burden. Because I know when someone dies in your family, bills don't stop. They keep coming. And the thing is, if I can help those families, it's something I can do in honour of Christopher. Not only that, if I can change the mindset of every worker, and that's my mission, to get in front of as many workers as I can, to be able to shift that mindset of complacency, to make them understand that they shouldn't be risking their lives, or injuries for that matter, just to get the job done. And to give them the courage to speak up when they're faced with unsafe work practices. I mean, let's talk about safety is my full-time job now. And I do this in honour of Christopher, because if I can save one more life, I've done it for him. And his death has not been in vain. And I'll do everything I can until my mental health, my own life, takes me to wherever it takes me to be able to shift that and to change the culture of an industry that needs a lot of change and a lot of courage, because no worker should ever go to work and die or get injured because there is enough protocols in place to keep you safe. And I hope that everyone makes their family a priority and makes the family the reason why they go to work safe every single day, because we need to all go to work. And we all have that same why, is to live our lives the best way possible. And we should not be risking our lives or injuries for that why, because there's no point. And I stand here not as a safety officer or a safety professional. I stand here as a mum, and I hope to resonate with every single one on a personal level in making that, because we're all workers and we're all the last decision makers in this world when it comes to our work practice. If an unsafe work practice comes along, we need to stop so we can come home safe to our families. Thank you.